What's up guys, it's the Couch Bear here, bringing you another video. Today's video will be about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I did a similar video about Starfield in August of 2023, that to date is my best performing video. However, in that video I only focused on the things I was excited for, and none of the things I was worried about for Starfield. Now, in this video, I won't be covering everything we know about KCD2. Nor will I only be focusing on the things I'm excited for. Instead, I will be talking about two things I'm excited for, two things I don't like the look of, and two things I'm not completely sold on but don't think are bad. We'll be starting with the things I don't like. This section will be called The Bad. We will then talk about the things I'm not sold on. That section will be called The Fence. And then finally, we will move on to what I'm excited for in the section I call The Good. But first, a little history of my experience with the first game. Full disclosure, Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of my favourite games of the past decade, so I do have some bias when I talk about it. But it wasn't always like that. It wasn't an instant hit with me. I played KCD on PlayStation 4 upon its initial release. I got about 3 hours in before I put my controller down and left the game. Just over a year later, in 2019, I bought the Royal Edition on Xbox and sat down to play some more. Again, only making it a few hours in. Then in 2022, I picked up where I left off in 2019, this time making it as far as Pribyslavitz, before setting out on adventures in other games. And there Kingdom Come Deliverance sat in my game library, not being played, until April of 2024. When Warhorse Studio announced Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I thought, well, I'm gonna play the second one, so I need to knuckle down and finish the first one. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, that's exactly what I did. I knuckled down and I grinded my way through the first game, finishing the main story and 2 of its 3 story DLCs. And I was hooked. As I said at the beginning of this section, it's one of my favourite games of the past decade. When I finished it, I was left wanting more. More of Henry Iscalitz, more of his bromance with Hans, the continuation of his story. But most of all, I was wanting more of medieval Bohemia. I just wanted to get back into that world. And that's when I finally watched the full reveal trailer for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And since then, I've been soaking up every ounce of information about the second game that I can. With all that waffle out of the way, let's get into the meat of the video. Starting with... So, I am going to be upfront with you guys. When I first started drafting this video, the first dev livestream hadn't even happened yet. And I did have a few things I didn't like the look of. But the more I've seen of KCD2 from the live streams and trailers and other videos that have been released, the less things I see that I don't like. So this section will seem very nitpicky, as there is nothing major I don't like the look of. With that said, let's get into it. So the first thing I don't like the look of is the map icon for Henry. This is disappointing to me. The map as a whole still looks beautiful, as it did in KCD1. But the icon for Henry sticks out far too much. In the first game it looked like it was hand drawn, like the rest of the map, but it stuck out enough to be noticeable. In KCD2 it looks like a late 90s 3D render, which is set against the backdrop of a beautiful map, that still looks hand drawn. It just stands out far too much and looks gaudy and out of place. And the second thing I don't like is the most nitpicky thing of all. I don't like the icons that show what ammo you have equipped, or the number that tells you how many you have. Originally, this would have been the whole icon showing you what weapon you have equipped, but the more gameplay I have seen for KCD2, the more this has grown on me. But the ammo type and counter, I still don't like. With the icon being a small one in the first place, adding a second and third icon on top of it makes the box look crowded and a little bit of a mess. Like I said, this section was very nitpicky, but I think that says a lot about what we have seen about KCD2, that these are the only bad things I can find about the game. Obviously it's subjective, so you might not like the look of something else, and when the game launches, I might like one of these things, and not like something else instead. Only time will tell. Now, let's move on to... So, the first thing in this section is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want any story spoilers at all, skip to 6:30 to avoid this section. Okay? So somewhere towards the beginning of the game, Henry takes a bit of a tumble, and that resets most of his stats and starts you from scratch. Now, I'm not a big fan of this kind of thing in games, but I understand why developers do it, which is why I put it in this section and not in the bad. With that being said, I would have preferred if they just started you off at level 1 and used the justification the Warhorse is using anyway, that in KCD 1, Henry started as a boy, fighting bandits, settling the affairs of lesser nobility, eventually becoming a man by the end of the game. And KCD 2, he starts as a man, fighting soldiers, and is involved in the affairs of kings and has to evolve and become a warrior. Starting him at scratch from level 1, with that justification, I feel, would have been better than the tired old trope of protagonist got an injury, that's why they're level 1 again, that so many sequels tend to use these days. The next thing I'm not sold on is the new outfit system. In contrast to the last point, I usually like features like this in games, but we don't have enough information on this feature for me to decide if I like it or not. I know we get to build up to 3 different outfits and with the click of a button swap between them, but does it work if the clothing or items for one of the outfits is in our horse's inventory? If it works from the horse's inventory, then I will be happy and I will use this feature till the cows come home. But if it doesn't, and I have to carry the items for 3 different outfits in my inventory, as a loot goblin that picks up everything that's nailed down, I'll end up spending 90% of the game over encumbered, which isn't a fun experience. So I'll end up not using the outfit system and doing what I do in KCD 1 and storing my second and third outfit in the horse's inventory and manually swapping each individual piece one at a time, which is what this system was created to avoid. Now, again, this is in this section and not in the bad, because I understand why it's in the game and it is inherently a good feature to have. And for most people, they'll see it and they'll be great. It will just be a me problem. I get that. Finally, we move over to... Now I get to talk about what I am excited for KCD 2. And honestly, this was actually the easiest section to pick 2 things for. So, I'm going to start off with the combat system. With KCD 1, Warhorse set out to create a combat system that was easy to learn but hard to master. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, Warhorse devs included, they managed one of these things, and it wasn't easy to learn. With KCD 2, the devs have learned their lesson, and I don't want to say they've dumbed it down, but in their own words, it is now easier to learn. They've made various changes to make it so. One of these many changes is a reduce in combat zones. In KCD 1, all weapons had a 5-pointed star for combat and a central dot for stab attacks, even with weapons that had no tip to stab with, because all one-handed weapons shared the same combat animations. In KCD 2, these zones have been reduced. The central dot for stabs is gone, and instead the lower 2 zones have been merged into one zone that acts as the thrust attack, but only with weapons that have a tip to poke with.
Phrasing, boom!
This brings the total attack zones down from 6 to 4, and if you're using an axe or a mace it's even less, thus bringing the skill floor more in line with the original goal of easy to learn. Another change Warhorse is making is that not all enemies are fighting masters. Warhorse have said that not every enemy will be able to use the Master Strike, and some will be even less skilled and may not even be able to parry or counter you. This is another change that should make the combat easier early game. Warhorse have also been hard at work making the combat look smoother with updated animations for every weapon I've seen, and even small animations for when a combo or counter kills an enemy. All these different changes and updates make the combat look familiar enough to KCD 1, yet different enough that it invites in players who have experienced KCD's combat to all extremes. those that mastered it, and those that didn't like it for one reason or another. Throw in blacksmithing and the ability to craft your own weapon to adventure across the land with, and KCD2's combat has sold me already. Here's to hoping they achieve easy to learn, hard to master this time round though. Finally, the second thing I'm looking forward to about KCD2 is technically two things rolled into one, but I feel that they are so intertwined that putting them together in this video makes sense. These two things are just generally getting back into the world Warhorse has brought to life, and the compelling story that they have crafted. As I said at the beginning of this video, when I finished KCD1 I was left wanting more of Henry's story, and KC2 is the continuation and conclusion of that story. And with Warhorse saying KCD2 will be 80 to 100 hours long, we are set to get more story than some of us expected. As for the world, Warhorse look to have outdone themselves with the two maps we have for KCD2. The first map, Bohemian Paradise, is set to be a vast wilderness dotted throughout with small hamlets, and in the middle of it all, Trotsky Castle, which is said that you can see it from all points on the map. Then the second map. I'm not sure on its name, but I believe Satobi called it Kutna-Horska. We haven't seen much of this map, but what we have seen is the city of Kuttenberg, which looks amazing. A massive mess of winding streets, multiple markets, shops, alehouses, and even underground mine shafts that can lead you into the basements of various shops and houses. Not to mention side quests that take you all across the city. And Kuttenberg, despite its massive size, is only a small portion of the overall map. Both maps individually are said to be roughly the same size as the map from KCD1, taking the overall size to about twice that we had in the first game. And I'm here for it. In my current playthrough of KCD1, I haven't used fast travel once outside of scripted moments that transport prisoners or marching out with Sakuno from the Band of Bastards. And this is because I love the world of medieval Bohemia that Warhorse has built and put so much time and love into. Just seeing the beauty of nature. And I'm expecting it to be 10 times as immersive and beautiful as the first game. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. If you're excited for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, let me know in the comments down below and give me your reasons as to why. If you like this video, please leave a like. Subscribe to see more of what I post, including a video in my A Taste of Madness series when KCD2 launches in just under a month. And ding that notification bell so you can be notified when that video goes live. I'll catch you folks in the next one, and until then, stay medieval.